Hi, I'm Skip Nipper. Welcome to Skip's Corner, the podcast where I tell you about not only Nashville's great baseball history and traditions,
shot to right, a one-hop liner,
but certainly about its past. And you will hear a little bit about its present and future, too.
Yes, he can. It makes the waist-high catch.
There are great stories about Tom Wilson Park, Herschel Greer Stadium, Sulphur Dell, and the players, coaches, and fans who love everything about baseball. And every once in a while, you will get to hear from a special guest who will share their fondness and even passion for the great game.
The high fly ball down the right field corner, going way back, hits a lead-off home run.
Nashville holds a place in Negro League's history, mainly through Tom Wilson, who Dr. Harriet Kimbrough Hamilton, the daughter of Henry Kimbrough, a great Negro League player from Nashville. She called Tom Wilson the father of Negro Leagues baseball in Nashville, and that is very, very true. Had there been no Tom Wilson, had his family not moved from Atlanta to Nashville, there may not be a franchise known as the Elite Giants, which was Tom Wilson's ball club. And I have always been curious as to the deep reason why Wilson moved his club when he did. Now, let me give you a little background information. Wilson took over a club called the Nashville Standard Giants, which was playing in the Capital City League in barnstorming, but still a local team of black ball players. He took them over in the late 1910s. He turned them into a professional team as a member of the Negro Southern League in 1920 and named them the White Sox. And then he changed the name to Elite Giants in 1921. And the name stayed with the team for nearly 4 decades. And as I said, I've been curious as to the deep reason Wilson moved his club, because he started by moving them to Cleveland in 1931. He renamed them the Cubs, and then to Columbus, Ohio, and Detroit, Michigan in 1935, although the history is inconsistent. Then he moved them to Washington, D.C. in 1936 and 1937, before settling them in Baltimore beginning in 1938. The team remained in Baltimore until Sue Bridgeforth, a local nightclub owner in Nashville. He was a numbers man, had a nightclub, but he also loved baseball. He had played some baseball and owned a team called the New Era Giants. He purchased the Baltimore Elite Giants franchise, and although he continued to call them as if they were from Baltimore, really Nashville and Sulphur Dell was their home until around 1954, when it appears the team's existence, well, it just went away. Now, I referred to a great book by author Bob Luke named The Baltimore Elite Giants, published in 2009 by John Hopkins University Press, when I wrote a chapter, a bio about Tom Wilson for SABR, the Society for American Baseball Research, in a book that they published named The 1939 Baltimore Elite Giants. Now, in his book, Bob Luke gives details about Wilson and the ultimate move to Baltimore, and he wrote this: newspapers often refer to smiling Tom Wilson's squad as the well-traveled Elite Giants. They played their first game in 1921 in Nashville and joined the Negro National League in 1929. The Great Depression caused the leagues to disband in 1932, and the Elites rejoined the league when it reappeared in 1933. When he discovered that the East Coast teams found getting to and from Nashville was a financial hardship, Wilson moved the franchise to Detroit, and they started the season there. But the Elites left Detroit after several weeks. They could not find a stadium to rent and went to Columbus, Ohio for the rest of the 35 season. Well, in my research, that's only partially true, as I have found several game accounts of the Elites continuing to play in Nashville's Sulphur Dell. I don't think they lasted very long in Columbus, and certainly not in Detroit. It appears Wilson was still anxious to find a permanent home, and I believe he always had his eye on the North, just as Luke wrote. And Luke goes on to write in his book, there the city's modest black population, now he's talking about Columbus, Ohio, 32,774 in 1930. Remember, this is 1935. They could not muster sufficient support for the team. So Wilson pulled up stakes, moving the Elites to Washington, D.C. for the 1936 and 1937 seasons. In May 1938, he moved the team to Baltimore, where he at last found adequate community support. Well, from that point, the Elites remained in Baltimore, and Wilson formed a new ball club, first the Black Vols and then the Nashville Cubs. Now, I've often wondered if his favorite ML team was the Cubs, since that's the name he gave his team in 1931 when they were moved for part of that season. And then here he is forming a minor league team for his Baltimore Elite Giants, placing them in Nashville, that's with Sulphurdale as their home ballpark, and naming them the Cubs. Well, here are the places the Elite Giants played their games through that time period, beginning in 1920 until about 1950, and then when they came to Sulphurdale. So, first of all, 1920 through 1928, games were played at Sulphurdale and also at Greenwood Park. Greenwood Park is out near Elm Hill Pike. There's a cemetery there for the black community, and at one time, there was an amusement park there, and a ball field was built as well. So Sulphurdale and Greenwood Park from 1920 to 1928. Then Tom Wilson built his own ballpark in the Trimble Bottom part of Nashville, and it was in existence from 1929 until 1934. Although, depending on how big of a crowd he thought was coming, he still played some games at Sulphurdale. And then at Redbird Stadium in Columbus, it was later called Cooper Stadium. That's where the team played when they were in Columbus in 1935. And in 1936 and 1937, they played at Griffith Stadium in Washington, D.C., the home of the Senators. And then 1938, when the team was moved to Baltimore, through 1944, they played at Oriole Park. And then also through 1949, they played at Bugle Field in Baltimore. And then in Memorial Stadium, famous Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, in 1950. And there was another ballpark in Baltimore, Westport Park on Annapolis Road in Baltimore, that the team played games in 1950. Originally, that stadium was built as a baseball field and was the home of the Baltimore Elite Giants. And the team moved to Nashville, and in 1951, the owners converted that ballpark into a racetrack. And then completing the circle from the beginning, the Elites once again returned to Nashville and Sulphurdale when Sue Bridgeforth bought the club and brought them home. Now, you might enjoy learning the Elite Giants' operating expenses for 1947 as published as Appendix B in Luke's book. I found this very intriguing because listed for gross receipts for home games was $36,693.93. How many times have you wondered what attendance was for these games? I don't see any attendance records too much, and certainly not how much fans were playing to get in these ball games. But there's the home games in Baltimore in 1947 when the team was playing at Bugle Field, $36,693.93, almost $37,000. And also listed are gross receipts at away games. And that's pretty good, $26,213.72. So the Baltimore Elite Giants in 1947, not including expenses, total receipts were $62,907.65. And in today's dollar, in 2024, that's something else I'm curious about. That would amount to, that $62,907 would amount to $889,454.93. Not quite $1 million. However, the team reported a loss of almost $2,000 that season, $1,909.29. And I think the salaries were listed at about $37,000. Remember, Jackie Robinson had joined the Brooklyn Dodgers earlier in 1947, and the end of the Negro Leagues was on the horizon. Tom Wilson had passed away in May that year, and he did not live to see the end. Well, thanks for being curious along with me about moving around the country. Tom Wilson's Elite Giants. He was always looking for a place to make money because he was an entrepreneur, numbers man himself, financial guru, and I think he did everything he could to bring fans to the ballpark and go to the places where the fans were, who would help make the Elite Giants a successful Negro Leagues baseball franchise.